Okay, let's dive in. Think about this. You pour your heart and soul into creating something great, a service or a product works, helps people, but maybe the phone isn't ringing. You're just struggling to connect with the people who actually need what you've built. That feeling, right, that gap between your brilliant solution and the audience, it can be, well, seriously frustrating. Because here's the hard truth, and the author we're looking at today really hammers this home.
Yeah.
Nothing happens in business until you get leads.
Absolutely nothing. It's the lifeblood.
It is. And when that flow trickles, everything else just seizes up. Sales stop, growth stalls, the energy just drains away.
It's so true. And Daniel Priestley, in his book, Scorecard Marketing, which is our focus today, he puts it really clearly. Everything, absolutely everything in business is downstream from lead generation.
Downstream from lead gen. I like that.
Yeah, think about it. Finding customers, obviously, but also attracting good employees, getting investors interested, even forming partnerships.
Yeah.
It all kicks off with getting attention and having people actually signal some interest.
That first spark, yeah. And Daniel Priestley's book, it offers a really potent strategy for tackling that exact problem. So our mission today is to unpack the key ideas from Scorecard Marketing. We want to understand the problem he says we're facing, how his scorecard method actually works, and importantly, how you might apply it, all based on his insights.
So good, let's do it.
Okay, so let's start where the author starts. The fundamental issue. Why is lead generation just so much harder these days?
Well, Daniel Priestley paints this really interesting picture, contrasting the industrial age with now. Back then, he says, the big challenge was making things.
Right, manufacturing.
Exactly. If you wanted scissors, for example, you needed huge factories, big investment, lots of labor. It was tough. But if you could make them, people genuinely needed them. Stuff was scarce.
So selling wasn't the hard part?
Relatively speaking, no. People would queue up. He even points out that the term gross domestic product came from that era. It measured what could be produced, assuming if you made it, it would sell.
And now, that world feels like ancient history.
Completely flipped. Making things, creating services, it's often much easier, much more accessible. Technology, global suppliers, digital tools.
But the flip side?
The flip side, as Daniel Priestley puts it, is that consumers are totally drowning in choices. You search for scissors on Amazon today.
Oh, yeah. Thousands.
Thousands, exactly.
Yeah.
So the bottleneck has shifted entirely.
So even with a fantastic product, you're just one voice in a massive crowd.
Precisely. The modern challenge, he argues, is huge. You've got to somehow find the right people in all that noise. Then you have to grab their attention. Then you need to educate them or entertain them enough to build some trust.
And then?
Then you need them to actually signal their interest. And ideally, while doing all that, you're also learning something useful about them.
Because a warm lead, according to the author, isn't just like a random email address.
No way. It's someone who has actively given you a signal. They filled out your form, requested your specific info, maybe booked a certain kind of call, and they know you're probably going to follow up.
They've raised their hand.
They've raised their hand and said, okay, tell me more about this. And the real power, Daniel Priestley emphasizes, is getting them to that point and getting useful data about their specific needs at the same time.
Which leads us neatly into his solution. Scorecard marketing. So fundamentally, what is this approach he describes?
The core idea is using a scorecard, which is basically a scored questionnaire or a quiz as your main tool for generating leads.
Okay.
The author calls it a product for prospects. It's like a low-risk first step someone can take with your business before they even think about committing to your main offering.
Okay, so is that like offering a free webinar or maybe a downloadable guide? Those are sort of products for prospects too, aren't they?
They are, yeah, and they can definitely scale, reach a lot of people. But Daniel Priestley makes a key distinction. Those things, webinars, ebooks, they tell the prospect a lot about you. But they're pretty one-sided. They don't tell you, the business, much specific information about the person who downloaded it or watched it.
I see. And the scorecard bridges that gap.
That's the idea. A scorecard is designed to be scalable, yes, but crucially, it's also designed to gather specific, structured information about the potential client, their situation, their challenges, their goals.
So it's personalized for them, but gives you intel.
Exactly. It's a value exchange. They get personalized insights and you get valuable data. And the author actually cites stats suggesting people are pretty willing to share data if it means getting a genuinely more personalized experience. He mentioned something like 83% are prepared to share for that kind of personalization.
Okay, that makes sense. Functionally leads plus data. But why does a scorecard specifically work so well psychologically? What's the hook?
Yeah, Daniel Priestley really gets into the psychology behind it. He says the basic reason anyone buys anything is what he calls psychological tension.
Psychological tension.
It's the gap someone feels between their current reality and their desired reality. There's this tension because they believe things could be better, and maybe your product or service is the thing that can bridge that gap.
I get that. Like, maybe you're running a business, it's doing okay, but you feel trapped, working constantly, while you see others having more freedom. That's a tension, even if you're not actively looking for, say, a business coach right then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Daniel Priestley talks about these dormant desires or tensions. They're simmering under the surface. People aren't necessarily typing solutions into Google, but the feeling, the need is there.
Like his example of the busy mom who used to love yoga.
Yeah, exactly. She misses the energy, the calm, the community she got from it, but life got in the way. The tension exists, but it's dormant. She's not actively searching for yoga classes at midnight.
Okay, so how does a scorecard wake those up?
By asking the right questions. The questions aren't just for your benefit to collect data points. They're designed to make the person stop and think about their own situation, their own gaps, their own desire for something better.
It's like you're guiding them to look inward.
Sort of, yeah. Asking something like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how often do you feel overwhelmed by your workload? It forces them to actually quantify that feeling, to acknowledge that tension.
Or asking the CEO specific questions about cybersecurity threats suddenly makes it less abstract and more about their potential vulnerabilities.
Spot on. It's a guided self-assessment framed by your expertise. And then there's this other layer. Daniel Priestley highlights this incredibly powerful, almost primal human drive we have to score, rank, and improve.
Oh, yeah, that's everywhere you look.
Totally. He lists so many examples: ski slope ratings, golf handicaps, business KPIs like profit margins, kids getting stars on a chart, stock market tickers. We are fundamentally wired to measure things, see where we stand, and want to get better.
So a scoring system taps right into that. It kind of gamifies self-assessment.
Perfectly put. It gamifies it. And the author argues a scorecard elegantly combines emotion and logic for the person taking it. You ask, on a scale of 1 to 10, how painful is X? That engages their emotion, the pain, but requires logic to assign a number.
And the result?
The result gives them a score. That's the logic part on an area they care about, which connects to the emotion. It highlights where they are now, implicitly suggests improvement is possible, and feeds that innate drive to, well, improve their score. Daniel Priestley believes this blend creates real momentum.
Okay, this makes a lot of sense. We understand the problem it solves, the psychology it leverages. So practically speaking, how do you actually build one? The author outlines 4 key things you need for a digital scorecard.
Right, 4 main components. First up, a beautiful landing page.
Okay, not just functional, but beautiful.
Well, beautiful meaning effective and appealing. Its job is crucial. Clearly sell the value of taking the scorecard and convince the visitor it's worth their time to start.
So what makes a landing page effective in this context?
The author points to 4 key ingredients. Clarity, what's in it for them? What will they learn or improve? Credibility, why should they trust you? Your experience, any awards, maybe testimonials. Connection, good design, relatable images, maybe showing the people behind the business. And critically, a really clear call to action.
Like, start your scorecard now or find out your score.
Exactly. Something unmissable that tells them precisely what to do next.
Got it. So, landing page gets them in the door. What's component number 2?
The questionnaire itself. Daniel Priestley calls this a creative approach to asking the right questions. He uses a great analogy. Think of an expert's checklist.
Like a pilot's pre-flight checklist. Or maybe a packing list for a specific trip.
Exactly. You're guiding them through questions designed to diagnose their current situation, related to the problem you solve or the outcome you help achieve, all through the lens of your expertise.
So the questions need structure. They're not just random.
Definitely structured. Yeah. He mentions using different types: yes, no, sliders, checkboxes, multiple choice. And he really emphasizes the power of grouping questions into categories.
Categories.
Yeah, this is where you can bake in your unique methodology or the key areas you focus on. Imagine the categories reflecting the core chapters of a book you might write about your expertise.
That makes sense. Does he give guidance on, like, how many questions or categories?
He suggests it depends on your goal. If you're using it mainly for top of funnel, turning colder traffic into warmer leads, keep it fairly concise, maybe Say 1 to 3 categories, 8 to 15 questions total.
Quick and punchy.
Right. But if you're using it further down the funnel, maybe to prepare already interested leads for a sales call, you can go deeper. Perhaps 3 to 7 categories, 20 to 50 questions.
More detailed assessment.
Exactly. The key is that the questions themselves need to resonate, get people thinking, maybe trigger some of those dormant desires we talked about. And, of course, you need a scoring mechanism working behind the scenes.
Okay. Landing page attracts, questionnaire engages and gathers data. Component 3, what happens after they hit submit?
That's the results page. And this is where the payoff happens for the user. They see their scores, usually an overall score, plus scores for each category they answered.
So they get immediate feedback.
Immediate feedback. But crucially, the author stresses, this page must deliver personalized recommendations based on their score.
So it's not just a number, it's advice tailored to that number.
Precisely. You might set up different tiers, maybe foundation, growth, scale, or whatever fits your topic. And the advice, the next step suggested, change dynamically based on which tier their score puts them in.
That's the dynamic content aspect. The page literally changes for each person.
That's the power of it. The content speaks directly to their specific situation, as revealed by their answers. Daniel Priestley even notes that AI tools can help draft this dynamic content pretty quickly now.
Yeah.
It makes the result feel incredibly relevant and valuable.
Okay, landing page, questionnaire, results page. What's the fourth piece?
The fourth is a sales and marketing approach. The scorecard isn't just a standalone tool, it's the engine generating leads loaded with valuable insights. So you need a plan for how you're going to use those leads and insights in your follow-up.
Right. It fuels what comes next. So how do businesses actually use this data effectively? What kind of results does the author talk about?
Well, the data works on 2 main levels. First, the individual results. When you follow up with someone, you're not starting cold. You already know their scores, maybe their biggest challenges according to their answers.
So the conversation can be instantly relevant.
Instantly. You skip that awkward initial phase of trying to figure out their situation. The author shares stories from users who say it transformed sales calls. One mentioned hating the first 15-30 minutes of calls, asking all those nosy questions.
Yeah, that can feel intrusive.
Right. But with scorecard data, they could dive straight into discussing relevant solutions because they already understood the context.
That sounds much better for both sides. And what about the data in aggregate? All the results combined?
That's the second level, and it's hugely valuable too. Daniel Priestley points out that looking at the overall trends, how people are answering certain questions, which areas they consistently score low in, gives you incredible insight. You can use it to refine your products or services based on common struggles. You can sharpen your marketing messages using the actual language people use to describe their problems in the questionnaire. You can even generate ideas for blog posts, videos, or workshops based directly on what your audience data reveals they need help with.
And didn't he have that clever analogy about finding Cinderella clients?
Yes, I love that one. Just like the glass slipper only fits Cinderella, you can use specific patterns in scorecard answers to pinpoint people who are a perfect match for your ideal client profile.
Like if they answer question 3 this way and question 7 that way, they're likely a great fit.
Exactly. And the author mentions that scorecard platforms often let you set up audiences based on these criteria. So you could potentially show a very specific, high-value offer only to those perfectly matched leads.
Super targeted, super efficient. Does he share specific examples of businesses using this?
He does. They really illustrate the value exchange. He mentions Scale Academy using a business growth scorecard. It helps service businesses identify their specific bottlenecks to scaling.
So the user got clarity.
And Scale Academy got highly qualified leads for their programs because the scorecard had already highlighted the exact problems they solve. He also talks about James Church using a pitch-ready scorecard for founders.
Assessing how ready they are to pitch investors.
Yeah. It gave founders personalized feedback and next steps, making them better prepared and making follow-up conversations incredibly focused. Another one was tick those boxes using an accountability scorecard for coaches, giving them data to show the impact of their accountability methods.
Those really drive home how it provides value first. Okay, so you've built this amazing scorecard. How do you get people to actually find it and take it?
Daniel Priestley suggests a whole range of promotion tactics. Share it everywhere on social media. Definitely put a link in your email signature, promote it to your email list, maybe run targeted ads.
Use it at events.
For sure, at live or virtual events. You could do joint ventures with businesses that serve a similar audience but aren't direct competitors. Basically, make it a central piece of your marketing.
And you mentioned earlier it changes the sales conversation. Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
It just shifts the dynamic completely. Instead of a cold call feeling, you're essentially responding to their signal of interest, as the author puts it.
Because they initiated by taking the scorecard.
Exactly. And you walk into that conversation already knowing a lot. Daniel Priestley gives an example script where the salesperson calls Joe, who just finished the scorecard. The salesperson can immediately say something like, "Hi, Joe, thanks for taking the scorecard. I see you scored particularly high in X area, but maybe have some challenges around Y."
Wow. Yeah, straight to the point.
Right. It feels helpful, not salesy. It shows you understand them. But, and this is key, the author stresses the scorecard doesn't replace sales conversations.
It enhances them.
Massively enhances them. It just makes them way more effective by providing that upfront data and focus. He also makes the great practical point. If your scorecard promotion is working well, generating good leads, don't stop doing it, even if you feel swamped. Create a waiting list if you have to. People have short memories. They likely don't remember what you did last month. Consistency is vital.
This whole approach feels very modern. It ties into what Daniel Priestley sees as the bigger picture, the future of marketing, right? He talks about those historical shifts.
Yeah, he traces this evolution. Radio becoming dominant. Think FDR's fireside chats.
Yep.
Then television, maybe symbolized by the Kennedy-Nixon debates, visually shaping perception. Then social media arrives, powering movements and campaigns like Obama's. And now, he argues, the dominant force is
Data
analytics. He points to modern political campaigns like Trump's 2016 run, which used data extensively to micro-target messages to specific groups based on what they already knew about their beliefs and online behavior.
And regardless of the politics.
Regardless of the politics, the takeaway for businesses, according to the author, is that data analytics is an incredibly powerful tool for understanding and influencing people.
Which leads to his big conclusion. Businesses today need to become data businesses.
Yes, because in this world just saturated with generic noise, data is what allows for that deep personalization. It lets you cut through and speak directly to an individual's actual situation.
Makes sense.
The author argues pretty convincingly that the more relevant data you gather beyond just name and email, the less you might actually need to spend on broad, less targeted marketing. Sales become easier, potentially faster, and you might even be able to charge more because the value is so clearly personalized and understood.
It's all moving towards, what did he call it, marketing for an audience of one?
An audience of one. Hyper-personalization driven by data.
Wow. Okay, so let's pull this all together. Scorecard marketing, as Daniel Priestley lays it out, is really this elegant solution to that core lead generation problem we started with.
Yeah, it tackles the challenge of finding and engaging people by offering them something genuinely valuable, personalized insights in exchange for data about their needs.
So the prospect gets immediate value, understanding their own situation better, and the business gets warm, qualified leads with context.
Which leads to better sales conversations, stronger relationships, and ultimately growth. It just streamlines the whole process.
And I love how the author brings it back to something really human at the end. He talks about, why is your best friend your best friend?
Right. It's because you know a lot about each other. You have shared history, inside jokes. You understand their needs, their quirks.
There's deep knowing there.
Exactly. And he suggests that data, seen through this lens, isn't cold or clinical. It's simply structured information that allows businesses to achieve that kind of deeper knowing and connection, but at scale.
Data as the foundation for creating real affection for your brand because you genuinely understand and address people's specific needs.
That's the idea. It's a powerful reframe.
It really is. So a final thought for you listening. Reflecting on Daniel Priestley's framework, what are the psychological tensions that your business helps resolve? What areas do you help people score themselves in and ultimately improve?
And think about the kinds of questions you could ask. Questions that wouldn't just give you information, but would actually help your potential clients have that aha moment about their own situation and see the possibility for change that you offer.
How could you start thinking differently about data? Not just as metrics, but as the key to becoming a data business that connects more deeply, builds that trust, and maybe even that affection with the very people you're best positioned to help. Lots to think about there.